Welcome to the Women of Distance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Kramer. These are the stories of motivated women chasing big dreams in the distance running world. You'll hear from women who are crushing it on the trails, the track, and the roads. These are not just the stories of results from the top of the sport, but the full story of how she got there. The challenges, failures, successes, lessons, and life between the miles. Before we begin, I want to be sure to thank Open Fuel for supporting the Women of Distance podcast. Stay tuned during this episode and check out the show notes to learn more about their responsible sports nutrition products, company ethos, and why it's worth your time to check out what they're making. Another quick thank you to Summit Roasters for supporting the Women of Distance project. Good coffee, roasted fresh in my hometown. Find their website in the show notes along with a special discount code to help support them and the podcast. We'd love to see Women of Distance listeners supporting those supporting us. Without further ado, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy. Okay, I am hanging out with Caroline Himbert today, the female unsupported record holder of the JMT. We're going to talk about this in a lot of detail here in a minute. Caroline, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You are not that far out from this monstrous effort that you just finished. You have also already been out doing some running and crewing duties and such as well. So it seems like you're feeling pretty good in the recovery, as well as you can be.
I feel significantly better than last year. So it's been a nice recovery journey, but to have slept a lot.
Yeah, as you should. As you should. For those who are not familiar, again, in a minute, we're going to get into talking about all of the details of what this is and what you just did. But the JMT, the John Muir Trail, is 223 miles. You took on this FKT unsupported and completed it in 3 days, 16 hours, 36 minutes, and 15 seconds. Want to give you every bit of time there, which was a substantial improvement upon your own record from last year, which you already held. It was also only 9 hours off of the supported women's time, which is held by Darcy Picue. I think that's a familiar name probably for a lot of listeners too. Again, I really am excited to talk about this effort, but as we were talking about before we hit record, the result itself is inspiring and incredible, but what I really want to get into is talking about how you got there, the story of where you started and how you brought yourself to being alone, unsupported on the JMT, chasing records. And so that's where we're going to start this podcast and work our way to the JMT. Let's go back there. Talk a little bit about where you grew up and when and how athletics first entered your life.
So I'm born and raised in Germany, in the Southwest, I always say close to Frankfurt, but it's still like 2.5 hours from there. And I would say I grew up with athletics, but not really running necessarily. My dad, used to run the road marathons like in Europe, Berlin, Rome, and so on. So I would like travel along with my son, like as a child. But I always thought like I could never run 26 miles. I would get bored. And yeah, I just thought I would never do this. And then about over 10 years ago now, I moved to the US. So I was like here and there in athletics, I played volleyball, but kind of just more like group stuff. And then when I moved to US and Salt Lake City in Utah, makes it really easy to get into the outdoors, more and more. I was camping with my parents, like when I was younger, but nothing like unsupported or just backpacking really, like more camping, like car camping. So when I moved to the US, I really got into the hiking, mainly. I was still not a trail runner. And then about a year into being in the US, I decided to take on the Pacific Crest Trail. So with pretty much minimal backpacking experience, I headed out to do the PCT almost exactly 10 years ago, in 2016. So that's my main thru-hiking background. And Yeah.
If I can interrupt there for a quick second, I wanted to ask what inspired that move to the US, and then I want to ask a quick question about the PCT too.
Yeah. So I'm a cancer researcher now. And what primarily drew me to the US was that I got the opportunity to do a research project, and then I had no idea where Utah is and where on the map it is. I also, to be honest, never saw myself living in the US. I always thought more, I did a lot of volunteering in more like third world countries.
Mm-hmm.
And always thought I'm going to end up like Doctors Without Borders and like more in third world countries. But then the research project offer was really good. So I ended up here kind of by chance, really, and just
Okay.
trusted the process, and then enrolled in a PhD program. And so now I'm a PhD. Um, yeah, mainly doing cancer research on exercise and energy balance and cancer survivorship. So it goes a little bit in hand what my
Yeah.
personal interest is too.
Totally. That I think really speaks to your personality too. And that's why I ask of just sort of, I don't even really know where this is, but I'm going to go give it a try.
Yeah.
Well, and so that leads to my next question. You said, I just decided to go out on the PCT. Elaborate on that a little bit more. Like, how did you learn what the PCT is, and how did you prepare yourself to just go and do it?
uh, yeah, that's a great question. I So I thought I'm already in the US. I heard about the trail. I knew about the trail like from just some media, but I wasn't even really like on social media back then. Um I hadn't even read the book. I'm not even sure if the movie was out back then, but I really was drawn by the challenge to see if I can make it from A to B just by myself and just with my backpack. And I thought that was a great challenge to take on. I think a lot of people go out through hiking and I feel like a lot of people always talk about finding themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I learned a lot about myself, but I wasn't really going out there to find myself as a person necessarily. It was more, I wanted to see, if I can be with myself for that long
Mm.
alone. Cause I think similar to ultra running, I think there is you spend a lot of time with yourself and you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of times also the challenge to just be the mental aspect of it. But I also love that part of just overcoming those mental challenges and having challenges you have to deal with. And yeah, so I just headed out and how I prepared. How did I prepare for that? I think that's where my researcher personality comes in. Like I did do a lot of research on gear and so on. I mean, I was a student. I had limited budget, but I puzzled it together, and um I did not set up my tent before I headed out, but I figured it out the first day.
First night. Wow.
Big Agnes makes it really easy to figure out how to set up a tent. I was like, that's not really rocket science. But so figured out a lot of things along the way too of what gear did I pack that I maybe didn't need? I thought I'm going to read a book out there, and I was like, nope, I'm definitely not reading a book. And yeah, just learned a lot along the way. And then continued doing through hikes. I did the Colorado Trail, and then I did the Continental Divide Trail as well. And really, really, really loved the long distance aspect of it. And then after the CDT, being a grad student too, I was like, oh man, I can't like take 4, 5, 6 months off all the time. So I think I should start running those distances. So I think 2 months after finishing the CDT, I signed up for my first 50K.
Wow. Okay. Expand a little bit on all of this through hiking that you were doing, learning your way through, both in terms of the skill of backpacking and through hiking, learning about yourself. Was there anyone in your life at this point who was like an example for you of what it was to do these big efforts, or how to manage yourself in these big efforts? Or were you truly taking this on individually?
I I didn't have anyone really that I can think of. I think it was more meeting people along the way who've
Mm,
done those things before, and I think I learned a lot from the interactions with people along the through hike. But
mm,
personally, in my life, I didn't have anyone who was doing similar efforts of backpacking. I had friends who went into who also moved internationally, so that was more of a connection that I've had. Some high school friends, but that was still different. They were living in another country, but they were not um, doing like a through hike or so. But I think the interactions along the way, and even doing the FKT last week, just chatting with some people along the way, like makes really a big difference.
yeah, I can imagine. I think it's funny to hear you say that you realized how compressed for time you were, and so you transitioned to running these distances, running trails, running ultras. There's definitely a different vibe between the thru hiker crowd and the trail running crowd.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about that move over to running some of these trails as opposed to thru hiking. What was that first 50K running experience like for you?
It was really hard. I was like, oh, I looked at the cutoff time and finishing the CDT. I thought, oh, I can theoretically hike and make the cutoff. Like I was fast enough hiking with my hiker legs after such a big through hike. Um, but I had no idea about nutrition. And I think back then maybe also there wasn't as much out there, but that
Hmm.
was a learning curve. And I kind of just I found like a training schedule online that I kind of just adjusted and then followed it for a little bit. But I really wasn't, I like ran, um, on the side, but like maximum maybe like 10 kilometers, like 6 miles here and there. But, really had to train for 2 months, and did like the local Antelope Island, Buffalo Run. And yeah, I cramped really hard after, after I think 26 and then just had to make it to the finish.
Yeah, that was a significant question I had, I think, is in all of this learning that you were doing about how to manage yourself in the mountains, how to do these long efforts, what kind of things did you feel like you had to relearn or teach yourself to be able to run on trails instead and race and compete with other people?
Yeah, I think the main part was I think coming from the thru-hiking background, you learn a lot about your body and how to read certain symptoms if you're exhausted, if you're pushing too hard, and when you need rest. So I think that one, and the other part is also the mental aspect, I think, of ultra running specifically. I think I came into the running world having that learned from the through hiking. One aspect I really had to focus on is actually getting faster and doing speed work and actually training for things and not just like, oh yeah, I'll just like go do it. Um, and then the big part, I think I learned more and more since the first 100 miler I did with nutrition. But again, I kind of love to do research. So I did a lot of research before my first 100 miler on, proper nutrition and build out kind of my nutrition strategy. Um, and yeah, I think nutrition and just getting faster was like actually being able to run a lot of uphill and just flat was the big part that I had to learn. My muscles had to learn. But yeah, I think the mental aspect was already there.
Yeah. Was there a point in that process of learning how to get faster, learning how to compete, that you ever maybe realized that you had a talent for this, that this was something not only that you enjoyed, but that you were good at in a comparative sense?
Mm, hmm, good question. I think I more did it because I had fun doing it.
Yeah.
um, I think I've noticed during the 100 milers that I think I'm pretty good at that distance at the long haul. I feel like my usual motto is like slow is steady and steady is fast. So I like to be consistent. I think consistency is kind of my strength, just keeping a consistent pace throughout, rather than going super fast. So I'm trying to make my consistent faster.
I love that. I love that. How does, especially as you've come into, again, that's another big difference between hiking and running and racing specifically, is that now you're in a competitive pool. You're out there with a couple hundred other people in any given race. How did that play into forming community for you and, getting to meet people and learn people in the ultra trail space?
I think Salt Lake makes it really easy
I
to
keep hearing this.
yeah, you had Maria, right? So like it is a really, really special place. I think it goes both ways. Like sometimes you get a little bit of a maybe imposter syndrome because there are a lot of good people here. And sometimes you're like, oh, am I good enough to like go to this group or join? But I think generally what I've experienced is that most groups, most run clubs or workout groups are really, really welcoming and usually have a really wide range of paces that you can join and distances. And I think that's where I connected over time with a lot of people who've done ultras, who've done 100 milers, and it that has helped a lot, and then has drawn me to sign up for 100 miler. Well, I entered the lottery in Wasatch 100 and didn't think I would get in, but then, whoops, got in. And I think it's a very inspiring community to be around. I think sometimes challenging because just a lot of people do a lot of things, but I think if you focus on yourself and like at the end of the day, we should be doing this because we love to do it.
Yeah.
And not compare. I think then it can be more of a inspiring environment. And yeah, Solid makes it pretty easy to find people who can teach you.
I love that. I love that. Talk a little bit about as you were kind of discovering running on the trails and making that transition. I think, also started discovering FKTs around this time, around 2020, I think was the first FKT I saw for you. Where did that interest come for you in kind of diversifying between running in races and running for yourself and FKTs on the trail?
Mm-hmm. I think 2020 was 2020. And I think you're referring to the Ruby Crest Trail,
Mm-hmm.
which is just like high alpine oasis. If somebody has never been, like the Rubies are super, super cool. Just this oasis in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. And because 2020 most races were canceled. I kind of was seeking other opportunities to run pretty far, and then saw the FKT and was like, oh, I think I can do that. And it was really nice to bridge my two worlds, where I came from thru hiking and the trail running together. That one was a little bit of a smaller effort, so I could run with my running vest. But I think it really bridges those two worlds together, and I really enjoyed that, kind of coming back to my
We
roots.
We talked about this a little bit before hitting record, but I had looked up your FKT history and noticed that you have only ever done unsupported efforts. Most of them shorter than the JMT, to be sure, but maybe elaborate on that a little bit and bridging your two worlds together. What is it that drew you to the unsupported format of FKTs?
Yeah, I think the unsupported format, which means you carry everything. You're not allowed to stash anything along the way. You're not allowed to meet anyone along the way. You're carrying everything you need. I think that just is the closest to thru hiking. And I think that was important for me to bridge those two worlds. of where I came from and then starting to run, to carry everything and making it really from A to B without any help. Not saying that I'm not interested in the supported. A lot of times it also just logistically takes a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more effort, especially the JMT. It's logistically pretty hard to get supported there. But yeah, I think it's so cool to make it from A to B by yourself and problem solve with what you have.
I think it's so cool too. And I imagine this comes from your through hiking background, but maybe this is also revisiting back to there. What gave you the confidence or the bravery to go out by yourself and take on that kind of effort and be willing to put yourself in out there alone, unsupported?
I think it I think through hiking, it's like starting to through hike with minimal knowledge and being out there for like 5 months at a time. I've seen that you can do a lot of things without knowing everything. You don't have to go into something not knowing everything. That's kind of part of that, kind of part of the sport, kind of the part of the beauty is that we grow with every attempt. And it's not like I went into it thinking I know everything about this and it's gonna be a smooth ride. I knew that there's gonna be a challenge and something that I don't know yet, but I also had the confidence just from past races and from past through hiking that I will figure it out, most likely.
Yeah.
Of course, there are worst case scenarios, but for that, you have a Garmin InReach, hopefully. um, but generally, I think most things we can somehow figure out. And if you fail, that's also okay. I went into an attempt this year too. And I think in the first day, I actually was really doubting myself. I was like, oh man, I don't think I have it this year. I didn't get much sleep because I was so much more nervous than I was last year, knowing how hard it is. I think
Yeah.
I was more nervous and yeah, I was really doubting myself the first year. And luckily, all of the early bailout options were closed because of a fire. So I didn't really have a different choice than going at least 100 miles. And yeah, but I know that it can be hard out there, but I also think you can, I, I think if we wouldn't learn anything, I think maybe we wouldn't even do it. I think
Right.
there needs to be a challenge that we're doing it. If it would be easy, we would be like, well, why are we doing this, right? Um,
I
and
love that.
yeah, and I think I think about the worst case scenarios, and I think a lot of people are afraid of the nights and with animals and things, and um, at some point you're so sleep deprived that you don't even notice anything around you.
Okay, let's get to the JMT. Let's come back to last year first, because I think there is really a big story here as well. Even before you got to the actual run itself, what gave you the inspiration to chase the unsupported FKT in the first place? I think if I'm looking at your history, this was your longest trail run. Not your longest. You'd obviously done plenty of the through hiking, but this would be your longest run by more than double, both in distance and duration. Where did that inspiration come from to chase it?
For me, it was the big part was it was almost like a 10-year anniversary of when I really started, and I really wanted to go back to the roots and again bridge those two worlds together because I had learned so much for the with the 100 milers in the prior years, and was like, I think I can do this with going back to the JMT. And last year, I definitely treated it more as like it's just a faster through hike, and wasn't as nervous, but
Okay.
I learned really hard lessons out there that it's not just a casual through hike that's faster. Um,
So, real quick, just for listeners who I think most listeners probably have an understanding of the concept of what the JMT is, but maybe if you haven't actually had your feet on it, I haven't myself to fully appreciate what this route is, how remote it is. Maybe elaborate on that. What is the JMT and what does it actually look like to cover this terrain?
Yeah. So the John Muir Trail is, like you mentioned, it's 220-ish miles and about 42,000 feet of elevation gain. And I think it's about equal amount of loss. Theoretically, you can do both ways. You can go northbound, going from Mount Whitney all the way to Yosemite Valley. That's the direction I did. Or you go southbound, going from Yosemite Valley to Whitney. So there are two records. You can set either way. And you have to get a permit for it. They're a little hard to get. And it overlaps a lot of the miles, the majority of the miles overlap with the Pacific Crest Trail. And so it's like it's like if the PCT is the crown, the JMT would be the tiara. And it, so going my direction, you start off with summiting Whitney. It starts at the portal. It doesn't count starting on the summit. Theoretically, the official trail starts on the summit, but because you have to make it up there, the portal counts too. So you can't just like take your sweet time going up, because the timer or the clock already ticks. And then from Whitney, you have 5 major alpine passes afterwards, which is Forester Pass, which is also the high point of the Pacific Crest Trail. It's over 13,000 feet. So Whitney is 14 and change. Then you have Forester, which is 13. Then you have Glen Pass. I think it's also still over 13. And then Mather Pass, Pincho Pass, Mather Pass. And then you have Muir Pass, which is a major pass as well. After that, everyone says, oh, you're like done. You're really not done. There's still like a couple passes you have to do, especially Donahue at the end. Like, I feel like that's been the crux for a lot of people who attempted it or have done it. Donahue gets really spicy. And yeah, so that, and then you descend into Yosemite Valley. And it's you're really above tree line most of the time. And luckily there's plenty of water. This year, I think there were some sections because of a dry year where there were some creeks dry already. But it gets surprisingly hot, even though you're really high up there. Like heats up a lot. I think I dropped into Yosemite when it was unhealthily like over 100 degrees. And yeah, it's very rocky. And there's a lot of kitty litter that gets into your shoes.
Talk a little bit about the access. Like, so I live right along the Appalachian Trail, which is quite accessible. The PCT and the JMT are different. Talk a little bit about just how accessible this trail is if you were getting support, or as you mentioned, like if you needed help or had an emergency and needed to bail, how easy is it to get into the JMT?
Yeah, I would say the first 50 or so miles are not very accessible. Once you drop down from Mount Whitney, you're really out there. There are a couple of passes, I've never done them before, that come from Independence, California, that you could bail over. And my thoughts definitely drifted to that the first day. But yeah, there was a fire, so those were closed. So the best access is, I think, Bishop Pass, the like really, really first one, which is quite far in. Like you're already almost 80 miles into the attempt. But the first access for crew would be maybe around 50 miles if the pass is open. But generally, the first half of the entire trail is fairly low access. It gets better and better as you go north because you get closer to Mammoth, and then the problem with the access is also that if you want to exit or have crew supporting, they have to cover at least 15 or 20 miles to even get to you.
Mm,
So that's kind of the access issue, is not
yeah.
necessarily that there is no path. It's just, it's really far to hike in, but that gets shorter and shorter as you continue north. Once you're into Lonely Meadows, up in Yosemite, you literally walk by the campground, and then you drop into Yosemite Valley.
So, talk about some of the planning for this. I think one of the interesting differences between through hiking and an unsupported record is that you really cannot receive any outside help. You really cannot even self support. So, those are different categories, self supported and unsupported for listeners. In the unsupported format, you have to carry all of your own food. You are responsible for your own water. You can't leave things ahead. You can't go to grocery stores, that sort of thing. It's fully you and yourself, taking care of yourself out there 100%. So, talk about the prep for that. Like, what does it look like to carry all of your own needs with you for that duration and distance?
Mm-hmm. So I made a list of essentials. I really tried to dial down my base weight, and I got tips from my coach, Joe Stringbean, as well, because he's done it before. So again, going back to having good mentorship is really important, and that was super helpful to get advice. And I feel like I started with the list that I previously had from my through hike, and then just crossed out what I might just not need. Sleeping bag, ditching that. Tent, nah. um, and just went down from there. Um, on the John Muir Trail, the a lot of the sections, most sections require bear canisters to carry. And all the previous female records have carried a bear can. And so for me, it was a no-brainer that I carry a bear can as well. Because theoretically, if a ranger stops you, they could, I don't actually know what they would do, maybe give you a fine or kick you out. Um, and so that was like, I call it my emotional bear can, my emotional support bear can that I carried with me, with the food. But yeah, I got it down to about, I think, 5 to maybe 7 pounds base weight. And then the rest was food with the bear canister. Like, it got to about 20-ish pounds when I started.
Mm.
Um,
How about fluid and water? How do you account for that along the way? Or
there's a
in the planning, anyway?
Yeah, there is a lot of water along the way, luckily. So I had capacity. I carried 3 flasks. Um, I only had 2 full at a time. I carried a third one in case one would break. And because there are some sections you definitely want to have capacity for at least a liter, if not a liter and a half, because they're a little bit more dry. So I had 3 flasks with me, and I, full disclosure, did not filter any water along the way. And I did that both times. I didn't filter last year. I didn't filter this year. I didn't even filter when I was just casually through hiking it back in 16. It's really high up there, and
Hmm.
it's a risk. It's a risk that I was okay to take.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, talk about this first effort. What did you feel like you were capable of going into it before you started? And then walk us through the adventure.
It was a full-on adventure. um, so I, the previous record was 4 days, 4 hours, no, 4 days, 5 hours, and 8 minutes or so. Um, and I definitely thought I can go under 4 days. I was like, yeah, definitely. Um, just based on, being an ultra runner. And I was like, yeah, that's gonna be easy to break to 4. Um, and it was going really well. Day 1, day 2, but day 2 I already started getting some foot problems. That was one of the lessons I learned, is how to take care of my feet better with blisters. Like I mentioned, it's very much a lot of kitty litter out there, and like a lot of small rocks, and they really get into your shoes, and destroyed my feet. I mean, I went to the ER the day after because I was really nervous. They were infected. So would not recommend that. I thought about giving them a visit this year after I finished and said, like, look, I did so much better this year with my feet. But yeah, so it went well. The main thing I was not used to or hadn't had any experience with was the sleep deprivation. So my legs were fine. That was not the problem. But I think especially day 3, I got really, really tired. And then my nap in the third night got cut short because a mouse was trying to get to my backpack. And these naps are so critical. Once you lay down, you really want to maximize those naps. If you get 10 minutes, if you get 30 minutes or an hour, any slight interruption can really, you're like, okay, well, now I'm up, so I should just keep going. And it was a mouse that came by and she woke me up. And then I was like, okay, I'll keep going. And so I got really, 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 really tired and was moving super slow.
So this was night 3. What had your sleep looked like prior to that? And did you plan it going in, or did you kind of figure it out as you went?
I had previously said that I'm going to do an hour and a half in both the first and the second night to have a plan for the first 48 hours. And then from there, kind of see how I'm going to do. Ideally, if I would have finished under 4 days, I wouldn't have had to go into that 4th night. But I thought I could finish around midnight, but I was close. But I didn't make it. Yeah, sleep deprivation is really challenging. It's like on day like doing day 4, I guess, my thoughts just really started to spinning. It almost felt like a third person. Like whenever I would say hi to a hiker, it didn't even feel like I was saying that. It was like someone next to me. And then I took a 30-minute nap because I was so tired. And then afterwards, I didn't really know where I was and was walking like south and starting going backwards. And at some point, I got out of that. But
How did you, well, so 2 questions here. When you are laying down to sleep, how are you waking yourself up? How are you holding yourself accountable to that time?
I set an alarm, and that worked. I had it right next to my ear, so I would wake up. And that was a major difference this year. The last night and day, I set an alarm for every single hour. And I would sometimes listen to music, and all of a sudden, the alarm would go off, and I would be like, "Whoa, there it is. Okay, we're still here." And it would actually really help. So like from midnight on, in night 3 this year, I set an alarm. And then I also this year had my nutrition alert on my watch set every hour. And I swear it like, it felt like it got louder every single hour. I know it didn't, but it felt much louder every time. I was like, oh God, that vibrated for like a minute.
There's something to that, your internal alarm getting needier, more important.
Yeah.
Coming back to last year and that 30-minute nap that then got you turned around, elaborate on that a little bit and how you ultimately sort of like self-rescued yourself in that sort of a situation.
Yeah, I woke up and I was super disoriented, and both hallucination episodes I had, I think my brain really went more into this survival mode of we really need to sleep. And the problem is also you can't resist anything that your brain tells you you're going to do. It's like, oh, this rock looks really comfy. You should lay down. Okay, yeah, we should do that. And then, later at night, for example, it like told me, oh, you should take this trail because it takes you right down to the road and someone can pick you up. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And so that's how I ended up off trail. But this the 30 minutes, I kind of wandered around. I went backwards, and then I started walking so slow because my feet were really hurting bad. And my brain convinced me that I had DNF'd and someone's picking me up right behind the tree. And I kept walking, and this one tree came, another tree came, and I was like, at some point I realized, why am I still here? This makes no sense. And then both times what got me out of it is just checking my map and actually also getting encouraging messages. So I connected to satellite and got a message saying, "Hey, you're so close. Keep going." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm actually still here doing this. So I should keep walking." And then I sped up and actually got going. And then unfortunately I lost a good hour, I think, just wandering around. And I got to the top of Yosemite last year after sunset, more towards midnight. And I had texted my crew, "Hey, I was walking and it was almost falling asleep, so I was really worried I would hit my head falling." And I said, "Hey, I think I'll take another 30-minute nap before I drop." And from there, I don't remember too much. I just walked off trail. My GPS shows that I walked a bunch of routes, and I saw a lot of people, a lot of cars, and then I just apparently laid down at some point and slept for about 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And finish the story. When you got up, like talk about that, maybe realizing that you had slept for such a long period of time. Did you realize that? And when you got up, what was going through your head?
I was very scared because I was off trail and I couldn't see the trail, even though I was really just a little bit away from the trail. I couldn't see it. And I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know where I was." And I think I just stared into the woods for probably another hour and just sat there. And then at some point, 4 hours is almost like a full reset. That
Mm-hmm.
was really refreshing. And I, at some point again, I realized, oh, maybe I should just check my phone and look at a map where I'm at. So I did that and noticed, oh, I have not moved in literally hours, and made it back to the trail. Just going through the bushes and made it back. I was like, okay, good. At least we're back on the trail. It's fine. Connected to satellite, texted my, I guess, crew, or the people who were picking me up. And I said, "Hey, so sorry. I fell asleep." They were really worried. They had to get up every single hour walking to Wi-Fi in Yosemite to check my
Mm.
dot, and my dot hadn't moved. And they almost called SAR on me. And then I was like, "Hey, I'm really scared because I seriously don't know how my brain went so off. Maybe come towards me and come get me." In my mind, I was done. And then waking up a little bit more, I realized, oh, wait a second, I calculated in my head and I could still get it. And so then I texted them, "Hey, I think I can just run and I think I'll still get it. Maybe not." And then I started running down and got it by 8 minutes.
Because I was literally looking up while you were talking what the time was. 8 minutes from the
8
previous fastest known time.
Yeah,
Wow, that's intense.
that was very intense. And
The
Yosemite in the morning is really busy.
Mm.
Yeah. And I lost my water bottle. I hadn't drank. So there were a lot of factors in the last day that I think I pushed through the sleep deprivation too far, where I was like, no, I have to really make it to this point and then I can take a nap. But I really should have just been like, no, to be honest, I'm not really making up time. I should rather just take a nap right now, regain some energy and being able to actually see and not have everything be blurry. And then I like, I think at those 200 attempts, sometimes taking like 60 minutes for a nap or 30 minutes or 10 makes such a difference because you're not going to move as slow, right? It's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
this like risk benefit of keep pushing, but you're actually really, really losing a lot of energy and a lot of momentum rather than just take a quick reset. You're staying there. Um, and then you keep going. So I think that's like a balance you have to manage at those really long ones.
Coming out of this experience and this effort, coming to the end, actually having snagged that FKT, what were some of your thoughts and feelings like in the moment when you finished and had completed this quote unquote successfully, but I can imagine with a lot of questions in your mind at the same time?
Yeah. Um, I was crying a lot. I was so emotional. I think this was the most emotional I've ever been at a finish because I really couldn't believe that I made it out alive. Even though, I was just a little bit off trail, but that was still really, really scary to lose that much control over your own mind and
Mm,
body. I mean, I was super proud of myself, but it was also scary because I was like, our sport is pretty safe, generally speaking. You can fall, right? But generally, like, it's pretty safe, but that felt a little scary experience.
hmm.
And
Yeah, and it's
it was hard to process because I couldn't really, I could kind of remember what happened, but also not really remember what happened.
mhm. When did it first enter your mind, having had that kind of experience, to go back and do it again?
Uh, yeah, I think my coach and my partner hated me for that, but I think I would have gone for it like maybe a week or two later again.
Wow.
I was like, oh man, I really, really think I can go under four if I just don't fall asleep. um, yeah.
So the deeper question there maybe is what did you learn, and in your prep heading into this year, what did you do differently in the preparation, in the planning? Like, it sounds very clear that you were confident in your physical capabilities, but that the sleep was the biggest factor and the biggest fear maybe also that you had for this. So how did you reckon with that in the first experience and apply that toward another attempt?
Yeah, I went into my splits and I really looked through where I could save time. I actually think on day one and maybe half of day two before the foot issues started, I was moving super well last year. And I was like, I don't think I can save much time here. But I've noticed that even taking the controlled naps in day one, in night one and night two, the 1.5 hour naps, I was taking quite a lot of time to actually take the nap. So it was
Mm,
around it more like 2.5 to 3 hours that I was sitting there. Cause I would get to camp and then, um, because of thermoregulation, like my body would start shivering right away. So I had to really quickly put my base layers on and my emergency bivy. But then I would take time to like pop my blisters, which is important. Um, and that was one of the key things for me this year was just to really prevent having to deal with that many blisters.
mm,
So that saved a lot of time. I would still, brush my teeth and yada yada. Last year, I really tried to get an entire bag of couscous down before I went to bed or like took my nap. And I was like, that took so much time last year. I'm not going to do that again this year. I would like eat a waffle and then just go to bed. So that saved a lot of time. So just cutting down, doing the naps more efficiently. Like I get there, I put my base layer on and brush my teeth, maybe eat something, and then I just lay down and nap. Um, and then my key part, and like you said, I was super, super scared of night three. I think I texted my partner or Joe. One of them had reached out that day, like, how are you doing? And I was like, I am pretty scared of the night. I really, really don't want to lose control again. Um,
Hmm.
so I was really scared of it, but my strategy or my planning going in was to be better about caffeine. Last year, really the full last, gosh, probably over 24 hours, I really forgot because my brain was just focused on going north. That
Hmm.
took everything out of me to continue going the right direction and not taking a wrong turn and not going south. And I just forgot everything. I didn't eat. I drank probably something, but I think I didn't consume any calories in the
Wow.
last day, and also forgot to take caffeine. And caffeine is like a really nice source you can use to stay a little bit more awake. So this year I did it better. Um, I took 2 shorter naps after sunset, and then one again when it's always the hardest, like between 1 and 4 a.m. We've all experienced that with 100 milers. Um, and then on the last nap, I would actually take some caffeine that would get me through to sunrise. Um, and I think that strategy really, really helped. And then the other part is that I really heavily relied also on liquid calories. So at all times, I had carbs in my flask so that if I would drink, I would also eat. So those are my two big differences, I think.
I'm actually curious to talk about this for two reasons. One, I have to make sure to say this podcast is supported by Open Fuel, and I know that that's what you used in your effort. But also that, like, you having Open Fuel as a source has even changed my perspective on unsupported FKT attempts because you don't have to carry because you have your hydration and your carbs in one, you can carry a little bit less. Your fluids can get you a little bit further than just hydration alone. And I think when you're doing an unsupported attempt like that, that's a huge asset. So talk a
Yeah.
little bit about just shameless plug for Open Fuel here because I think they're fantastic. Just talk a little bit about how you
Th-
implemented that in your nutrition strategy.
Yeah, big shout out to Zach. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I calculated having about 8 to 10 packages of the open fuel a day, and that covered a lot of the calories. And like you said, it's so efficient. I feel like even if you have GI issues or like you could just get fatigued from eating, the liquid always goes down. Like that's
Right.
probably the part that will still go down. And so having something that's still, and I think um, again, advertisement for open fuel, but the taste is very subtle. It
Mhm.
doesn't, I didn't get sick of it. And also having 3 flavors made it really nice. Um, and I really, with other fuel that I had with me, I tried to have similar things for day 1 and 2 and then kind of mix in slowly other things so I don't get too sick of it. And
Mm.
that worked really well. And that can be like simple things like a Snickers or so. Just having something real out there is sometimes really nice and not just gels. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like you said, the having the liquid calories was a huge game changer. Um,
Talk about your feet. What did you do differently that had your feet in such a different state this year?
tape. Lots of tape. Yep,
Okay.
I went with just like stretchy KT tape because the toes would swell up quite a bit. So I taped where I had problems last year. I taped my big toe, second toe, and pinky toe, and then I also taped my heels. And I would also prioritize that. So there's one really big creek crossing around mile 110 where you have to take your shoes off. There's no way around. And after that, I took my time. I retaped everything. And I was actually, nobody was there to hear that, but I was like, oh, I'm so stoked. My feet look great. And I was so excited, cause it really worked. It worked really well to just have them pre-taped. Turns out that really works.
That really
Yeah.
works.
So for the heels, I took Leukotape, and then for the toes, I took some more flexible KT tape that would expand with my toes.
So It's interesting to hear, you talked about going into this second attempt with a little bit more fear because you knew how hard it was going to be. You knew how scary that first experience was. But everything that I'm hearing you describe about the things that you changed and the things that you put into it sounds like you really took your time to be calm and s- develop a plan and stick with your plan and take this in a very methodical and calm, patient fashion. How do you feel like you were talking to yourself along the way as this is all unfolding for you and unfolding in such a positive way, even with, like telling yourself out loud that look at my feet, they're in such good condition. Um, what kind of things just internally are you telling yourself as you're moving through this and things are clicking?
Yeah, I think you, you are just with yourself out there, and that it's it's sometimes it, it's a little hard in certain ways, and you have to be a little harsh to yourself. In night 3, when the same, not the same, I had different imaginary friends show up this time, but there were definitely voices again that really, really told me to lay down again. And I thought I would have learned also to read it better, to read into when I go into such a hallucination episode. But turns out I didn't. But I was able to resist this time and just say, no, no, I have to make it up to this pass. I said I'm going to make it to the pass with sunrise, and I'm almost there, and it's almost sunrise. I have to make it, and I just have had to keep repeating that to myself. And then the last day took a lot of resistance, where I just kept telling myself I can't even stop for water. I have to keep going, because if I sit down, I'm going to fall asleep. I can't sit down. I have to keep going. And um, what helped a lot too is just play a lot of loud music this time, like with my headphones. That kind of kept me awake. And then the alarms were great. Um, but I also, like you said, I knew I had a plan. I deviated from it pretty much night 1, because I was actually planning to have a shorter nap the first night and then a longer nap the second night. Like shorter, saying really just 30 minutes the first night. But because I slept, because of the nerves, slept really, really bad the night before and started at 1:30 a.m., I decided I will benefit from a longer nap the first night. So I actually pivoted. But I think one of the key thing, and I think that again goes back to the through hiking roots, is just last year, I think I was just really like chasing and was like, okay, I got this, and push real hard. And this year I kind of just trusted my experience and lessons I learned and just really listened to my body better.
Hmm.
I was like, if I need to sit down to eat, I should sit down to eat. If I feel like I need to just close my eyes for 10 minutes, I'm going to close my eyes for 10 minutes. And I think in the long run, that will save me a lot of time. And it did.
I think there's a lesson in that of like really accepting that you can trust yourself and that, you can lean on the experience that's in your past and you can trust that your body knows what to do. And I think there's a real
That
message there.
Yes, I think our bodies know pretty well what we can and cannot do. And usually our body tells us pretty well when we need to take a step back and slow down a bit.
Hmm. Is there anything you feel like you did not do well or that you would improve upon if you were to go back?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, I wish I would have slept longer at the first night, before I started. I think it worked out really well. I think a lot of puzzle pieces, like I was actually really happy with how it went, and I actually just had a good time. Like
I love that.
obviously it's hard. It's really hard, but I had a lot of fun.
I
I
think
would
there's
say.
a message in that too, like really being able to do that, knowing it was hard. And again, we've talked about several times now the fear that you carried into it, but allowing yourself to enjoy what you were doing, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. And also I think having these moments of, for example, going through the creek and seeing, wow, my feet are so great, just being also like happy with, yes, I learned from last year and I did so good. Cause sometimes you go into another race and you're like, oh, I didn't take enough sodium again and I'm cramping again. But
Yeah.
having those moments of growth and
Hmm.
having those flashbacks of, wow, I actually did learn something here and I'm going to take this forward now, was really, really special. And,
Yeah.
and then towards the end, I think also what kept me going was that I think surprised myself. I wasn't going in with I really wanted to go under 4 days. That definitely was a goal, but I definitely surprised myself maybe a little bit with how much time I can cut off.
What point did you know that not only were you going to achieve the FKT, but that you were really setting a substantial mark here?
I think it was during the last maybe 10 hours. Once I made it to sunrise of the last day, is I know I made it through the night. And if I just keep going, I don't have to make it into, because I knew that if I have to make it into this next night, I will really, really struggle and probably fall asleep again. And I really just, that kept me going and I had to make it just to the finish. And I got a text from like a Garmin from Andy, from my partner, where he was like, keep going. If you keep this pace, you're gonna be under 4 days. And you expect to like slow down obviously a lot. And I think that's what he was calculating. And I was out there, I was like, I'm gonna beat 4 days by so many hours. I was like very confident in it at that point. I was like, I just have to keep this pace and I'll be fine. But that was like one of those realizations of like, no, I think I got it. You got to believe in yourself too, when you're like, no, I think I got this.
I love that. I love that. 12, more than 12 hours faster than you did it just 1 year prior. And as I said, like really substantially close to the supported record. What did it mean to you when you actually got to Yosemite and like really started to either approach the finish or even just get to the finish? What were some of those feelings and what did it mean?
I was really happy to be done. No, I was actually
Fair.
I was super, super excited. And one of my friends who was there last year also came out, and we're joking that last year my partner brought me Sprite Zero to the finish instead of real Sprite. And so that was kind of our running joke for the whole year. And so I was like, I had to do it again so I get real Sprite. And so I received a real Sprite and um 1 liter of chocolate milk, and it was the best chocolate milk I've ever had in my life. But
Of
yeah,
all of the things that we're talking about that you needed to correct and improve upon, I think that's the best story right there.
yeah. But yeah, I was super proud of myself. Um, Last year I finished and I could barely, walk really fast. It's like when you finish and just everything falls apart. And this year I could have walked to the car and I felt so much better. I felt 1,000 times better. And I think that was the biggest accomplishment for myself, was just feeling better than I did last year, knowing that I took better care of myself out there.
What kind of confidence does that instill in you for the future? Like, not only that you had grown and changed and sort of proved yourself from last year to this year, but like, what does that mean for you of what you are capable of moving forward from this?
Yeah, I'm really excited I have two
I
supported
saw this.
200s coming up, and I'm excited about it. I'm like, wow, if I can do this in what 80 something hours with a bare canister, I'm very, very curious to see how the supported efforts feel. Obviously they're faster, you're running. But yeah, I have Moab 240 and Cocodona, and I'm excited to just see how that feels with friends out there. That will be so fun.
I will be really curious too. Just it is such a change. You know, you're with so many people, you have so much more support, so much more access.
They
And
can slap your face when you fall asleep. That will be, or like they can tell you like there's not another person right next to you. Um,
yeah.
and so I'm excited to see how much I can uh improve my 200 time by just having support, or like having it be a race, like a race, right?
Mhm.
So I'm excited.
How is your recovery in general going? Just it's been a little over a week at this point. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think I'm doing actually really well. My feet, I think my only part that I still feel is the top of my foot got pretty bruised, you know, where the shoelace kind of ties together. So I still have like a little bump there, but otherwise, I've been running. I crewed my partner at his 50 miler, paced him for 16 miles, and yeah, it's been like a week and a half, and now feeling very grateful for my body this year.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
next year I'll
incredible.
take a vacation after Cocodona.
Do you have, so we've got these 200 plus mile races, official races on your calendar. Do you have any
hmm
other FKT efforts in mind?
mm, I haven't thought about it too much. I mean, I think there are like others out there, like maybe Colorado Trail or so, that are like even longer. But then it's always the question of, oh, where do we stop with this? Um, but I think for now, I'm very in peace with the effort I did, and just feel so much better about my time. And I think the focus right now is just on the races and see how that goes, and then go from there. Maybe something like at home would be cool, like in Europe at some point. I think that could be really fun, to go back home and do something there close to my parents. Um,
Hmm.
but that's kind of just up in the air.
I love it. All right, final question to bring us to a close. And I'm interested to hear your response to this one, kind of going back to your earlier days in the mountains. If you
hmm
could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would you tell her?
Foo. Um, I think I've previously said this, but I think really one thing that I believe in is just trusting the process. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to learn. And uh yeah, I think trusting the process and just going with it and learning along the way.
I think that's honestly one of the favorite things that you have said throughout this conversation that really stuck with me is that, you know, you don't have to have it all figured out before you go. It's okay to learn and figure it out on the way. I really love that.
I think especially when we're in our 20s, that's kind of a thing, right? We like are so overwhelmed with the world. And I think that's what I try to tell my students too, is like, you really don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay. Um, Life has a lot of different paths you can take, and it will take you, I believe in that it takes you the right way that it's supposed to go. And that can be in the sport as well, or in just Korea or wherever it is. But you really don't have to have it all figured out. Just whatever you're passionate about, it's the right thing to do.
Even if you go backward or get off trail for a
Yeah,
minute,
even
you'll
if
still find your way. Pull out the
yeah,
map, figure it out.
exactly. You know, I just really wanted to really explore that one spot super closely. And fun fact, this year at that spot, I took a quick break and had a quick dance party and
Mm.
like didn't dance in the woods with my imaginary friends, but I danced with myself and um kind of was just celebrating to have control over myself and being able to finish this thing. And so coming back to your question, how I celebrated, I think I celebrated actually before I dropped into
Before.
Yosemite, just by myself and just was happy that I did it.
I love that. I think it speaks to your story and your personality too. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I've really enjoyed hearing about this huge effort, and congratulations to you. I just find it so inspiring, and I think it's a fantastic example of what we are capable of if we're willing to just go, just try. And your researcher background to learn and problem solve and figure out your way through it. I've just really enjoyed hearing the story of it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
Mhm.